Hi bakers, I'm Crystal the Cake Lady, and today I'm going to honor my precious grandmother by sharing with you her favorite cake that I make, fresh apple cake. But first, let me tell you a little bit about my grandmother. To know her is to love her. She's probably the most selfless person I've ever met. And you know, I think she has a lot to do with my love of baking. We've got pictures of me as a tiny little toddler sitting on her counter, peering into the mixing bowl. I'm sure she was probably imparting all kinds of baking wisdom on me back in the day. So thank you, Granny, for introducing me to baking at such a young age. Now, back to our fresh apple cake. This cake is wonderful any time of the year, but you gotta make it in the fall when fresh apples are in season. You can even go pick them for yourself in some parts of the country. And we're all kind of craving those warm spices like cinnamon and nutmeg in the fall. So it's a perfect time to make this cake. Of course, you're going to need Baker's Joy and a bundt pan. Our star ingredient is apples. Today I'm using Gala apples, and you're going to need 3½ cups of chopped apples. You need 3 cups of all-purpose flour, 1½ cups of granulated sugar, 1/2 cup of brown sugar, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, 1½ cups of vegetable oil, 3 large eggs, and a cup of chopped nuts. I'm using pecans today. Like I mentioned, I'm using Gala apples. Other good apples to bake with include Honey Crisp, Granny Smith, and Fuji. You want to cut the pieces quite small. The little pieces of apple lend a lot of moisture to this cake. And since there's fruit in this cake, I think that means it's perfectly acceptable to eat for breakfast too. Don't you agree? It depends on the size of your apples as to how many you're going to need to get 3½ cups. I ended up needing about 4½ apples. This will need to go in a 325-degree oven. Baking times can vary, especially in bundt pans, so after about an hour and 10 minutes, start checking with a wooden toothpick. When it comes out clean, after testing in several places, the cake is done. Mine took about an hour and 20 minutes, but yours could take a little more or a little less. While that's cooking, we can go ahead and start on our caramel drizzle for the top. You're going to need 1/2 cup of brown sugar, 1/3 cup of 50/50, 1 cup of confectioner's sugar, 1/2 stick of salted butter, a dash of salt, and some extra nuts to sprinkle on the top. has been cooling for about 2 hours now, so I transferred it to the serving plate, and I'm going to drizzle the caramel sauce over the top. Go ahead and sprinkle the nuts on while it's still a little bit wet, that way they stick to it. Doesn't that look just delicious? Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go run this over to my grandmother's house where I'm sure she'll invite me to come in, sit down, have a cup of coffee, and we'll share some of this fresh apple cake. I hope you'll give this recipe a try. If you do, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Also, please like and subscribe to my channel, Crystal the Cake Lady. Until next time, happy baking!